Hello and good evening, day, afternoon, morning, whatever to anyone who is hearing this. I recently made a post on my Twitter asking about, well, not asking, I was just indecisive as to whether to make this long video, short video form, or just like an image form. I wasn't sure what to do, so I did everything. As you can tell, I have the wheel right here as proof that I'm not making stuff up if anything crazy does happen, but I doubt nothing crazy is going to happen. Here's how this will work. First spin is the protagonist. Second spin will be a support character. I'm going to do what a few people do. Some people spin for support or antagonist or both as well, so I will be including that here. Because why not? Then we will get into the chapters and I will follow the traditional format of chapters here. I shuffled the names like 20 times in a row so that people would be in a random order here, even though some people are coincidentally next to each other, which is kind of funny. But who cares about intros when we could just see who the protagonist is and I could do my best to explain it if it makes no sense. Who is the protagonist of this spin the wheel version of the hit series Danganronpa Despair Time? Mono TV's gonna love this rendition, trust me. Mai's gonna be watching too from the sidelines. And no shot. No. You know what? You're just destined to be the protagonist. But the thing is, we're not having that. Like, if Xander and Min end up first chapter gone again and then RA and Ace, so be it, I guess. But we're gonna have at least a different protagonist, I assure you guys. Like, I love Teriko as much as the next person, but we need at least a different protagonist. I'm so sorry, Teriko. You can be the support though. I dig that. Wait. RA protagonist. I dig it. Oh my gosh, wait. RA protagonist? We're gonna see her first interactions with people during the prologue. That would be so interesting. The way she behaves so two-faced. You would literally see her inner like insecurities and judgment, especially with the whole Eden situation. From the start of the series. That would be so interesting. And especially like how she'll interact with other people in the cast. Like, how's RA going to, go around and talk with each of these people in different ways? Will RA crash out happen this time? Will RA crash out go down the same way? Who knows? I'm so curious, honestly. Who is going to be RA's support character in this rendition? Let's see. Yes! Sorry. I'm just so glad. Oh my gosh, Wit Young. RA and Wit are besties. Trust me, guys. That scene in the bathroom with the toilet paper being thrown at Wit, yeah. That was a sign that these two were meant to be best friends with each other. I'm so happy. I'm so happy right now. Oh my gosh. That's actually amazing. We're off to a banger start here. Like, I dig this a lot so far. We have Wit as the support, I feel like Wit as a support, he would just wait until the right time to chime in like he always does, and he's like, I can give some evidence, and then say the most unexpected thing or be surprisingly helpful. And then it'd just be like, you know what? Yeah, we'll take it. Better now than never. Who would be the antagonist? Ooh, I'm a bit worried about this one. Who would be a good antagonist for RA? I want to see, because I can understand the RA and Wit protag support dynamic, but oh wait. Jay? Wait guys, Jare real? Okay, oh my gosh. So I feel like for Jay to be an antag, it's not as much of her being, I'm gonna screw up the trial on purpose, haha, I'm psychopathic, I want everyone to just jump off a cliff. No, that's not in Jay's character at all. I feel like for Jay to be an antag, RA might use perjury quite a bit, for example. And Jay might pull up Like, no, that doesn't make sense at all. Or, you know, Jay might like use her knowledge of different kinds of things to fight against RA's reasoning in the trials and just oppose the ideas that RA brings up, because Jay is pretty down to earth, reasonable. She has her own ground of morals. RA's morals are very messy, like they're very gray considering her backstory with her sisters. So I think the two of them might contrast in a moral sense and also in a sense of what they think is reasonable in terms of what could have went down for different cases. We have RA protagonist, Wit support, and J antagonist, which I think is a very interesting trio to start off with. Now I'm a bit worried about who's gonna die and who's going to survive. Our chapter 1 victim is going to be... No, keep going. Okay, I'm sorry, wait, no. I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
That sounded so messed up, but like... Okay, let me just tell you right now, Ace deserves better. Ace deserves better, bro. But I feel like in order for Ace to have been killed off the bat, I think it's either... It would either have to be someone stronger than him, first of all. I feel like the person would be more likely to use like a type of Nico style, like turpentine type method. Someone would find a way to knock him out first with like, say maybe even the poison in Charles' room, for example. And then they'd find a way to like murder him. The same way that unironically Nico almost did. I hope Nico's not the killer here, bro. I really hope. I feel like people might see Ace as an easier target because of his paranoia throughout the killing game, especially like even in the first chapter, it's rather apparent this guy is paranoid and he's gonna do what he can to just not die. Like, he's terrified of death and his paranoia will only make his situation worse for him. So I think someone might notice that and find a way to somehow manipulate him and take advantage of him to put him in a position where they can kill him. If it's like an accidental thing, then oh goodness, like it'd have to be like a Xander Min type situation if it was an accidental killing. But I think it depends on the killer also. And I'm leaving Ace on the wheel because the possibility of the victim also being the culprit. You know what I mean. We're going to see who chapter 1's culprit is before removing both the victim and culprit from the wheel. Oh wait, no. Oh my gosh! No way! I feel so bad right now. Wait, no. Ace V is over party. Ace V is ruined party. No. This is an example of doomed yaoi, bruh. I can't even. You know, Levi's death threats this time, they're legit. He did in fact go for Ace's neck. That's crazy. It's honestly really weird for me to see Levi as a killer, and even though I know he's, spoilers, canonically a murderer, it's just Ace would have to really rile him up in order for him to even consider killing someone in the killing game. Just because, like, Levi would not really care about most of the motives, to my knowledge. The chapter 1 motive, Mono TV said once in brief passing it was something about family and loved ones. Levi would not care. Like, even in chapter 2 trial, he just comes forward. Maybe it's a different motive, and for example, everyone's gonna die if someone doesn't do anything. And Levi figures, I'm already a murderer and a good person would try to save everyone else, potentially. Or maybe like someone says something that like makes him think that way, for example. Or Ace really like bullies the heck out of him and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna shut you up because Levi just kills people he doesn't get along with, like he's in the mafia. So I mean, maybe that's what truly went down at the end of the day, who knows. Chapter 2 victim, oh no. No way. No. Terako Tawaki's luck did not save her this time, I fear. Her luck was not working. Obviously, for Terako to be a victim, I think, like, if she weren't the protag, I would think she's a goner for sure, for example. Because of her unluckiness, it's going to land her in a position where she can be killed. And depending on the other person, I mean, it might be a situation of her being knocked out first, a situation of her accidentally stepping into someone's trap. It would be her unluckiness that puts her in that situation. I mean, she almost wound up being the first victim. Right here, it makes sense that she would end up as the second victim, I mean, with her unluckiness. It's just that the whole Ace v Doom Tiaoui situation happens first. So who killed Terako? Don't you dare land on anyone that will make me cry. Oh, okay, wait. Terako and Veronica gone this early is super interesting, in my opinion. Terunika shippers, how you feeling? Yeah, Veronica would just have to go a bit crazy. She'd be excited about the whole killing game situation because she's a horror fanatic, and she would try to brainstorm a unique way to kill someone. Maybe she'd set up like a horror movie trap, for example, type deal. And Terako is the one who's unlucky enough to like stumble upon it, or maybe find her in the process of making it, or something of the likes. And that would probably be how the murder goes down. The intention is honestly for Veronica to rile things up, is what I'm guessing. But the thing is, I don't see any world where Veronica would even kill someone this early. It's a rather interesting notion, but Veronica killing someone in chapter 2 is a little early for even her standards, because I feel like she'd be really interested in even living to the chapter 3 trial, for example. She'd love to live through trials with different numbers of people, and maybe she would kill someone later on just because there's less people around. In this situation, she was trigger happy havoc. Accidental reference. Maybe she just felt as though there might not be a better opportunity in the future, for example, or maybe things were just getting a bit too boring. Either way, Veronica's a very interesting character to dissect, along with Terako's unluckiness. So there's a combination of ways that this could happen. It just feels a bit early for this combination to happen, but I could see a Terako and Veronica combination. I could definitely see the two of them in this situation. Ace and Levi chapter 1, Terako and Veronica chapter 2. We still have R.A. Wit and Jay all currently alive. You know, luckily enough, the first 3 dead are actually all still alive. We have that going, at least, for the people who are fans of Xander, Min, and R.A. People who are fans of Ace, though, I feel pretty bad. I'm also an Ace fan, trust me. I shouldn't have celebrated when it was him instead of David. I should have been manifesting for David. Chapter 3, first victim. We are going to have BJ. Oh my gosh, wait. So the Antag dies in chapter 3. That'd be interesting. An early death of an Antag. We could roll for a new Antag, but then again, what if they die again very soon? What if Wit became the Antag? Okay, I'm sorry. Who is the second victim along with Jay? You know, this might turn out to be some people's predicted chapter 3 situation. Sorry. Okay. This is not gonna be the real chapter 3. But, Jay and Nico, interesting victims. I feel like the killer might have been caught in the act, or the killer might have decided to go for 2 people. It really depends. I don't see anyone here who would personally go against Jay with a vendetta, except for maybe, like, Arturo, if he was, like, still, you know, exposed with the whole secrets motive. But even then, I don't really see him going to such extreme measures against Jay because of what she did. I mean, to be fair, she was a girl boss calling him out. But anyways, I love Jay and I love Nico, so this kind of sucks. But I love the whole cast, so the previous chapter sucked also. But who's the killer and why is it David? Who is the chapter 3 killer? Rose! Oh my gosh. So, Jay, Nico, Rose. This is actually a pretty good chapter. This would actually be a really good chapter to include if it were like a different story. Does that make sense? Like, if the Danganronpa were written differently and like there were different murders and like deaths happening, then this would be a pretty good chapter because Jay and Rose are main foils of each other, and Nico and Rose have an interesting dynamic after the whole friendship ended with Rose, my best friend is turpentine situation. Rose has been showing symptoms recently in the canon, the spare time, of having a breakdown soon. There might be a motive such as getting her family out of debt, or everyone's going to die either way soon type deal. Something that pushes her. A motive that really speaks to her and pushes her over the edge. And she may target Nico, because Nico would be one of the easier people to target in this situation. Not only because of their physique, I mean, they're not even weak. They're like average strength, I believe, on the strength chart. But because Nico is one of the people who is arguably has proven themselves to be more morally gray. Then again, Nico wouldn't attempt to murder someone this time around either. Or would they? What if Nico attempted to murder Jay? Wait. I don't think Nico would attempt to murder Jay though, because they were pushed by Ace's attitude. Maybe Rose would target Nico solely because they would be an easier target in comparison to some other people here. It's really hard to get Charles and Whit apart from each other, or like Eden and Hu are together a lot. Ra would physically be stronger than Rose. Xander would also be physically stronger than Rose. David and Arturo are a mess. What's interesting to me is Xander and David are both still alive. So I wonder how in the world, like, is it going? Like, how's it going, guys? Like, is something happening? Because David would usually have his breakdown and be like, we're all gonna die anyways. Everyone's secrets are so bad. Go die alone. Ace is gonna get hit by a truck. I woke up in a noble, you know? Like, David's all like that at this point, like, already. Would David have a crash out already? Like, how would Xander react to David's crash out? If the motives stay the same and David gets exposed for having the manipulator one, then yeah, Xander and David friendship would be over. Like, Xander would be like, never meet your idols, I guess. Crap, I'm going back to Britain. Sorry. Rose would probably target Nico because the two of them might, like, still develop a friendship here, because if Nico still asks Rose to learn how to paint, then this time maybe, like, they'd still genuinely be interested in, like, learn to paint type deal, but not really, like, take advantage of that trust. Rose might end up taking advantage of it if she has a breakdown. Maybe Jay walks in. I feel like, yeah, Jay might walk in looking for one of the two, or just looking for an object, or just trying to find something to do. And Rose would have to find a way to get Jay out. Rose could use her turpentine against the both of them in order to knock them out. She wouldn't need to be physically stronger or have a weapon if she had her turpentine on her, for example, and could, like, get a sneaky advantage type situation. This would be a very good trial, I believe. And I mean, yeah, gender envy trial, I don't know. I will spin for a new antagonist, but if they die so soon, then it's not my fault. You know, Jay was like the trial run, you know? She was like the one who was questioning Ra's stuff. If it was Min, that would have been interesting, but this is Ra being the antagonist to herself. Maybe in this situation, she hasn't had her breakdown yet, for example, and she keeps saying Eden be nice to others, and Eden keeps being her kind, cheerful self, and it hasn't really gotten anyone hurt or killed. She's just such a sweetheart. And maybe Ra, like, starts to become the antagonist of herself because she's comparing herself to Eden, and she's acting as if Eden's an antagonist even though Eden isn't type deal. Ra might start to antagonize herself because of self-image issues with how she behaves, how she can be seen as a terrible person, but she had a terrible upbringing and she has to be this way. She might start having conflicting thoughts on how she figures things out in the trial, how she interacts with other people. She might start doubting her own capabilities, for example. Maybe Ari feels guilty about the people dying. It might be a muddy situation of guilt with what's going on, questioning the way she presents herself because there are people like Eden who are around and happy and alive and well. I could definitely see Ari antagonizing herself, which is interesting. Like, honestly, a Danganronpa where there isn't a clear antagonist character, and then you've realized the protagonist is their own antagonist, I would dig that concept like crazy. Like, I would eat that for lunch every Sunday. Now we're getting into the chapter 4 victim. We've gotten so far already. Who's it going to be? Who's dying in chapter 4? Keep going, 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 keep going. Okay, we barely got... Bro, if the pros had died that late in, oh my gosh. What if Ari dies? What if Ari dies, guys? Then crap. My bad. Well, thank goodness David's dead. Sorry. That's so messed up. But nah, I needed him gone, bro. I needed him gone. Maybe in this situation, like David did get exposed for being
lying, manipulative.
Okay, anyways. He might have still gotten exposed for that, for example. Xander resents him. Who resents him? Nico was like, why'd you make me come out? Nah, hopefully that didn't happen. Maybe David will still be there when Ari breaks down. Well, maybe Ari does break down around this time. Who knows? Who knows, really? Who kills David? You did the world a justice, honestly. Whoever you are, you did the world such a justice. Okay, girl boss. Okay, girl boss. One thing is for sure, what's gonna be sad, Ari starting to become her own antagonist is heavy foreshadowing to this situation. She starts to become her own antagonist, doubt herself, slowly start to break down through all the deaths she's had to witness in the executions and the brutal bodies. She decides to target David, potentially because David's already exposed to be a misogynist or something like that. Maybe David was already exposed to be his manipulative persona at this point, or she chose to target him because he was one of the fake nice people. She got agitated, perhaps, when she's in a sort of right state of mind all the way back in chapter 2, for example. She says she was a bit annoyed at David for being a liar, but then she realized she'd be hypocritical for being mad at him. But I feel like in this situation, if you're not in the right state of mind, then you would still be mad, and she'd find that as, you know what, this is a suitable target because the rest of the people here, at least they're pretty upfront with who they are, at least they're not manipulative, at least they're not hated like I am type deal. There might be a motive, but at the same time, I feel like it might be another mental situation where she breaks down. Ari doesn't seem like the type to murder for food, for like her family, for money, for her secret. She doesn't really seem like the type to murder for any of those typical motivations that people have. David would just be the best option, frankly. It's sort of like what Veronica says about Ace, how most people wouldn't feel guilty about killing him because he was one of the unlikable people. That's probably the situation it would be with Ari and David here. Ari and David also might not be friends in this universe. Now we need to find a new protagonist and probably also spin for a new antagonist. So first we will see a protag switch. It'd be interesting if it switched to Wit, who was the support all this time, but you know. Oh wait, that would be interesting. You just have David's friends as the protags of the series. So we'd have a protag switch to Xander for chapter 5 onward. The chapter switch would probably happen in the middle of the trial when people start to realize Ari's a killer, and that would be so interesting because people wouldn't expect the chapter 4 protagonist switch, you know what I mean? Like, that's just so out of the ordinary. And I feel like you'd probably like have to hang out with Xander a lot to have some subtle foreshadowing moments of him becoming a future protagonist for the series. Xander protag after specifically David's death would be an interesting mentality because he might behave towards David like death the way that Teriko says she doesn't really care about others. But then again, Xander might not act like that, and if previous people's deaths were brought up, he'd just be like, why do we need to talk about that? Unless if it's like really mandatory, I feel like he'd just try not to focus on the subject and focus on the positive side of things and motivate the people around him to continue pushing onward and try to escape the killing game. I just want to say it's a miracle that Min and Xander are both still alive, and I really hope they become survivors. I really hope so, but I might be jinxing it right now. Who is going to be Xander's antagonist is the question here. Who? Ooh, okay. I see the vision. Now, usually, the thing is, you'd think that, like, maybe Min would be Xander's antagonist due to foils, but I could see who easily as an antagonist because she acts out in an emotional manner, and she's probably breaking down like crazy by the time we reach chapter 5 here, for example. With who? She would be trying to be helpful. She'd be like, you guys need this evidence, you guys need me around, right? She'd be trying to feel better about herself and contribute to the trial and situation. She would probably be all over the place. Eden might try to calm her down. Charles and Whit might be like, hey, we can't really like trust you if you're like this. I could definitely see Who going crazy at like this point. Her emotional state and trying to be helpful could easily get in the way. Her desire to defend others could interrupt with Xander trying to piece together evidence and make the most potential story. Xander would try to be like polite at first, but then like when he realizes it's someone, he pushes hard, like, you're a bloody murderer, how could you, type deal. And Who would probably be desperately trying to defend people. So I could see how those two traits, those two characteristics would conflict in a class trial environment. And what's still the support? He's gonna be like, Xander, you're the next RA. You're gonna be the next girl boss of the generation. I want to know who is the chapter 5 victim. Charles and Whit survived so long, it's gonna be one of them. Don't be Whit, be Arturo, be Arturo. Yes, let's go!
Sorry.
I should not be celebrating this. Arturo chapter 5 victim is so interesting, but like, considering how random this has been, I want to know who's the culprit though, so I can make sense of why he was specifically targeted and why this went down. Our chapter 5 culprit is... Okay, we finally have one of these cases. Okay, this is dark. Motivation might be, at this point, it might be a case of him fully breaking down type situation. Maybe David or R-Ray was the traitor. I'm actually leaning more towards R-Ray because like imagine like the subtle hints towards her being a traitor in like text, for example. It could be like a Kaede type situation where there's subtle hints of the text throughout. Anyways, on this note, Arturo. Motive might be self-image issues, unfortunately. Maybe the motive is everyone's going to die at a certain point either way. Arturo's just sick of it all. He starts to hate himself for how he interacts with others and how people perceive him, and he might start overthinking and follow in the footsteps of his sister. It's a really dark situation, but he might start feeling crazy guilt for things such as that. The mastermind might have altered with the crime scene here to force a class trial to commence for this chapter, and people would realize there was no heavy outside influence in the case and there was no actual murderer. It was someone tampering with the crime scene, and that would warrant them to try to hunt down the mastermind, for example, which could be the chapter 5 trial, or they might get the chance to go outside and investigate like the building before having to track down the mastermind. But I feel like this might warrant them to finally have the chance to hunt down the mastermind in the class trial. Currently we have 6 survivors, but I'm going to bring back everyone to figure out the mastermind. But then again, 6 survivors feels like a bit much, don't you think? So if none of these 6 end up as the mastermind, for example, then I might just pick one of them to be the sacrifice for funsies, but you can ignore that part. I'll probably just put it at the end here. So the current survivors we have are Charles, Whit, Who, Eden, Xander, and Min. It's very divided equally per gender. Poor Nico. Nico deserves better. Peace and love to Nico. I love being here. Love and peace. I'm going insane. I'm sorry. Mono TV is the best participant. Like, I hope it survives, honestly. 20 shuffles, everyone's in random places, and we are spinning for the mastermind of this killing game. Who put them all here? Who is the reason they're here? Who has suspicious connections to my Mono TV? Bro, are you serious? Get this dude out of here! Nah. In what world would... So interesting. Hold on. Ace Mastermind. What situation would this happen? Why would Ace be a mastermind? Potentially, he was sick of his everyday life. We know that about Ace. He's sick of his mundane life and his crappy personality and his crappy job and his crappy non-binary attempted murderer and his crappy doomed tragedy with an actual murderer, and he's sick of everything. Throughout his life, he'd just be so sick of things, and then like he'd start experiencing despair, and he'd start getting so used to this feeling of despair and spiral into a descent of madness situation. He'd rather put other people through crappy situations where he's like, see, this is what I felt all my life type deal. The first victim being Mastermind is kind of like an iffy situation. They'd probably discover it due to like how early he eliminated himself and the way in which he was found dead. Maybe the way Levi left him, like maybe his body was like replaced with like a well-crafted doll, maybe, and that's why they couldn't find a pulse type of deal. I'm sure people would have checked for a pulse. I mean, it'd be suspicious by how early he was taken out of the game because people would typically forget someone by that point. He'd be super cool as a mastermind. Like, I'm just saying, like, I'd love to see like Ace Mastermind type sprites. I think there's absolutely zero way, like with his character, but it would be so interesting, you know what I mean? People doubt him. They doubt his intelligence and his capabilities, and he even expresses in like the second case that he's sick and tired of people doubting what he can do and how he is more competent than people believe. That could be a part of the whole mastermind motivation, and it can also be a part of the shock that some people may experience with Ace being the mastermind. Even the likes of Min would probably be surprised. But it would be such an interesting way to conclude things and an interesting dynamic with the cast. I'm going to spin for a sacrifice type deal, like someone who also ends up dead. In this situation where a sacrifice is needed, it'd be interesting here to see. Oh no! My favorite character dies right at the end. That would actually be like a punch in the gut. Like, my heart would be ripped out of my body. Maybe Wit was a traitor, for example, and he'd be like, you know, I'm on your side and I want everyone to live and be happy. And I don't want anyone else to have to die because I care about all of you type deal. Wit would genuinely feel like he has friends. Honestly, Wit seems kind of lonely when you really look at his character. He doesn't really consider people friends immediately type deal, like, or like on a deeper level type situation. He does give off the vibes of a selfless character. If Charles and Wit are still best friends here, that would definitely upset Charles immensely and make him need therapy type deal. I feel like everyone would be sad. Like, even Xander and Min, who may be a bit more annoyed by his antics at times, would probably be pretty sad about it. I don't think he's secretly a psychopath or anything like that. I just think his mental state is probably not as good as he portrays it, but that doesn't make him a psychopath. Wit would just like be like, yeah, no, I can't let anyone else let themselves go here. I have to be the one to leave. I really liked this. I mean, the Protag switch, Antag switch, that whole mess, the R.A. David trial, oh my gosh, like, even the earlier chapters were really interesting combos of people that die so early on. And then Ace Mastermind drove me insane. It's like, we're back to where we started. Ace and Levi dying first chapter? Doomed Yowie? Like, hello? Unexpected? But I mean, then again, they were doomed in chapter 2 also. It follows, it tracks. Chapter 2, Veronica and Terraco, like, that's gonna be such an interesting chapter. Like, I would have so much fun watching that kind of chapter in a Fangen, you know? Chapter 3, Jay, Nico, Rose. Oh, I can already tell that would have beautiful writing. That chapter would have such good writing with the foil dynamics, and The motivation, Ara and David, again, very well thought out. I would be like hooked. I'd be interested in every single second as the realization dips into the viewers' minds that the protag you're playing is the culprit and is gonna die in chapter 4 as the blackened. Like, that is so interesting. Oh my gosh. And then chapter 5, the Arturo situation, I think it really like sets a darker mood for the whole thing, and how the buildup of everything, like especially with the RA and David chapter, because I feel like RA's motivations would be like in a darker place, like mental state wise. I feel like it just really darkens the mood and lowers it down into that despair-inducing state, and then they find out Ace is the mastermind and Wit has to sacrifice himself type deal, or maybe Wit doesn't sacrifice himself. Depends on what you want. I feel like the overall message of that would be very interesting, because you have Xander as a protag later on, so he'd probably make the most of the situation and become uplifting despite the downsides and the issues regarding their situation. That was Despair Time Spin the Wheel. It was a very interesting rendition. Hopefully it was enjoyable. Those are just my thoughts, but I tried not to ramble too much, even though I did ramble a lot. There's so many different combinations this wheel could have chosen. That would be so interesting. So I'd love to see more of these around. So if you see any, send them to me. I love spin the wheel situations. Thank you if you're listening to this. Have a great day. Unlike the fish in chapter 2 relaxation room, have a good day. Yeah, don't kill the minnows. Don't short circuit. Don't pull a David. Be a girl boss. Be a king thing. Do crime. Attempt to murder gingers. Yeah, that's the kind of things you should do in life. So yeah, have a good one. Take that life advice and do good. Have a good one. I don't know how to end things.
I'm gonna kill you. 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 I'm gonna kill you.